for the fastest 2 hours in sports talk radio. Get ready for Chase Robinson.
He has got to be a player they can rely on in big situations.
And Gerhard Mathangani.
Has the trust of his team. Sounds like the makeup of his team is in a really good space, and I believe that's because of the culture he's curated down there.
For WKXX Live, these guys have you covered from preps to pros and everything in between. Now, let's go inside the Fox Sports 102.9 studio with Chase and Gerhard for WKXX Live.
It is a Thursday afternoon, and we welcome you in. WKXX Live. Chase Robinson and Gerhard Mathangani with you on this Thursday. Back at it. Yesterday, no show, had an afternoon Braves game. We are back with you today as we're getting closer to the weekend. That means closer to football, high school, college, and the pros. We'll get you ready for that. We're going to talk with Todd Garvey, Jacksonville State volleyball coach, here at the bottom of this hour around 2:30, 2:45. We'll talk with Brandon LaCroix from the Alabama Dragway. Jason Collins from the Alabama Dragway. And then at 3:30, Brian Mintz of the Etowah County Fellowship of Christian Athletes will join us. So great guest lineup today, Gerhard, and a lot to get to today.
Yes, most certainly. And I think that every time you get to Thursday, you're a day away from game day and on the high school football scene, and then you're also a couple of days away from game day in college football, and then of course you have the NFL games tonight, and which is a nice little precursor to what comes the Royale on Sunday. So yeah, a really packed show and lots of talking points. It's a really busy time of year.
Got to start with some baseball, though. I know we're sitting here in the middle of football season, but it's crunch time in baseball. And the Braves go down again yesterday to the Giants 4-1. You're still a half game behind the Mets because the Mets are really trying to give it to the Braves right now, and the Braves are trying to hand it right back to them. But not a great way to end the road trip there on the West Coast.
A team under 500 in the Giants. Last year they obviously had a great year, but they're playing well in the second half of the season. But still, a team that's under 500. The team that is not as playoff hungry as far as a motivation standpoint as the Braves are, for obvious reasons. And for the Braves offense to continue struggling as much as they have ever since they've gone out west, it's really striking to see. I think that obviously the Mets are helping them out by the same token, and so it's one of those things where day to day we just keep having these little storylines. I think the Braves are just wanting to get this West Coast trip over with, come back home, and then hopefully have a nice little run at home.
It's not been a great trip for a couple of key guys for the Braves. Austin Riley is 3 for 28 in the last 7 games on this road trip. Matt Olson, 2 for 26 on the road trip. You look back, though, to his last 15 games, he's 4 for 53. These are not good numbers from two of the key offensive guys for Atlanta.
Well, and I think that's the good thing for the Atlanta Braves too, because if you can have these guys still not playing very well, and the difference in the run differential last night, run differential was 3. The game before that, the run differential was 1. The game before that, I'm talking about the losses here. The loss yesterday is a 3-run loss. The loss the day before is a 1-run loss. The loss the day before that, a 1-run loss at Seattle, 8-7. The game before that, another loss, 3-1. The run-loss differential here is less than 3, and you would think most days those guys can give you as far as where their hits are, the RBIs. Just from a production standpoint, they'll be able to give you more than what you're losing as far as when they're not hot. So it's a good news, bad news situation. Yes, you don't want to see it, but then you could also strike it up as maybe it's a cold streak. They come back home. They find a little bit of that juice when they come back home in these 6 games against the Phillies and the Nationals and keep it going. It's one of those things where, like, a football team turns the ball over 4 times and loses by a touchdown. You just think, okay, well, we played better than them in every other aspect except for this one. If we change that up, we win the game. I think the same thing for the Braves here. I think if they could try to find a way to get Riley and Olsen not to play above their heads, just to play their natural game, they would. Some of these games that are losses turn into wins.
Yeah, Robbie Grossman did have a good day yesterday. He was 3 for 3, batting 9th there in the lineup. William Contreras 2 for 4. Eddie Rosario came in for 1 at bat and got a hit. So some guys stepping up, but it's an important time because you're going into a series with the Phillies now. We've got less than a month to go in the season. You've got 7 games with the Phillies left. You got 3 games beginning today, and then you've got a 4-game series with Philadelphia at the end of next week. And right now they're only 8 games behind the Braves right now. So you know if you go on and lose some more of these, that's going to give the Phillies also a chance to kind of get themselves back in this race.
In the same mindset that when the Braves were down 10 games to the Mets, they didn't lose any hope.
Yeah.
And the whole talking point was the Mets are going to Met and the Braves are going to keep their foot on the gas pedal. Well, we've seen kind of both things play out here. Now, the Braves can't have that now happen to them with a team that's also hungry here towards the end of the year.
Yeah, and so series begins with the Phillies tomorrow through the weekend, and then another series with Philadelphia next week. Hopefully the Braves can get hot, get some wins, and hopefully the Mets will keep dropping them on the other side. And we talk about the Mets metting. Well, we don't need the Braves to do that as well.
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of the whole nature of Georgia sports. We thought that the curse had been lifted, so to speak. You know, once the Red Sox won a championship, felt like the curse of the Bambino was lifted. And I feel like once the Braves and the Georgia Bulldogs won, the curse of the Atlanta sports has now been lifted as well. Hawks still have to do their thing, and the Falcons still have to do their thing. But for the most part, I think last year being a great year for the state of Georgia, that was the case. But for the Braves, good thing is that there are no more West Coast road trips. You're at home. You're on the east side. You're east of the Mississippi from here on out, outside of maybe playing against whether it's the Dodgers or wherever. But that's going to be in a playoff situation. So I believe that this is a team that they know what's in front of them. They know the level of focus that they have to maintain. I trust Brian Snitker to be able to get this team from a mental standpoint to get where they need to be. And then from here on out, it's, hey, can you play your best baseball not just against slouches anymore? It's against teams that are trying to chase you in the division. And then, of course, the 3-game series against the Mets, you know, you have the head-to-head. So keep that in mind. If it's a game, if it's even, you still have a 3-game series as a head-to-head. And that 3-game series very well could determine it if things keep going the way they are right now.
Yeah, for sure. Kenley Jansen, the closer for the Braves, was doing really good for Atlanta, getting the job done. As of late, though, he's been struggling. Brian Snitker keeps going to him, keeps giving him the baseball. Is that good to put a pitcher like that who, yes, we know what he's capable of, but he's just not playing good right now, but you keep putting the ball in his hand?
I think in the short term it's frustrating, but I think that Brian Snitker's playing for the long term, and I think that he's thinking in the same way that Riley and Olsen are going through a slump right now. Kenley Jansen in as well. And this West Coast road trip has not been a good one for him. He already has a loss. He's got a blown save. His last save was a couple of weeks ago back on the, or about a week ago back on the 9th. And I think that Brian, the skipper believes that, you know, his best baseball is still in him. And he just needs to be able to work it out. And it's the, not to use another football analogy, but I think this one works. When a quarterback throws 2 interceptions, but you know he's really capable of being able to play at a high level. When your main shooting guard is, 4 of his last 18 and you keep running plays for him. I think that just because he's slouching doesn't necessarily mean you have to immediately pull the trigger in a way that you would do with a guy that's not as seasoned. I believe continue throwing him out here, even though it's frustrating in the short term. I think it's good in the long term to show him, hey, number one, we still have confidence in you. We know what you could do. We've seen you play at your highest level, and we think the highest level of ball is still in you, and it's up to him to go out and get it done.
So Braves, Phillies start their series tomorrow night, and they'll play through the weekend. Big division series there. We'll see if the Braves can perhaps have this series to catch those Mets up at the top. And hopefully when we talk to you on Monday, the Braves will be sitting atop the National League East. That's what we hope, of course. But lots of football to go along with all of this baseball. And we're going to spend a lot of time on football today because we got some college football coming your way this weekend. Like we said at the top of the show, high school, professionals. Got a couple of, we'll take a look at a scouting report coming up next. We'll kind of scout Penn State and Tulsa, the opponents for Auburn. and JSU. We'll do that on the other side of this break. 2:30 is when JSU volleyball coach Todd Garvey will join us. Historic start for the Gamecock volleyball team at 10-0. We'll talk about that with a big weekend for those ladies coming up. We'll do that at 2:30. Much more to get to as we roll on here on this Thursday. Stick around here on WKXX Live.
Being an Army Ranger is a very fast-paced.
We roll on this Thursday afternoon here on WKXX Live, Fox Sports 1029. Chase and Gerhard with you as big weekend of college football coming up. We're going to go into a scouting session here as we'll look at Penn State, we'll hear from James Franklin. We'll look at Tulsa. We'll hear from their head coach, Philip Montgomery. That is JSU's opponent Saturday. We'll look at Alabama, Louisiana Monroe, and Coach Terry Bowden coming up tomorrow. But let's start with Penn State. This is a crucial game, I think, for Auburn. One that, if you've gotten 2 wins to start the season, but this is the better opponent coming in. If you get this win, you're at a position where you're feeling good going into SEC play. If you lose this game, then your mindset's going to be a little different going in. We know Penn State, Sean Clifford, quarterback. Auburn made him look great last year. Mm-hmm. That's something they need to avoid. I think, the fact they have a new coordinator there at Penn State. There's a lot going into this game that you think, Penn State's got the favorite. By 3? They're 3-point favorite on the road. So, there's a lot, I think, going for Penn State, but this is a winnable game for Auburn, I think.
Most certainly. I think that you schedule this game if you're Auburn for a couple of reasons. Number one, to get yourself ready for SEC play. And then secondly, you do so as obviously let's take the money part out of it because I think it's going to be a good atmosphere, a good game. And that's the reason why Penn State said yes to begin with as well. And it's mutually beneficial from a financial perspective for both teams to have this game. Happy Valley last year and on the Plains this year. That goes without saying. So for the Tigers, now it is measuring stick time. Now, last year, they scored 60 plus in both games and then went into this one, scored 20. Plenty of opportunities, especially late, to either tie it up or go ahead and get the win. They weren't able to do so. The defense got carved up as well. Auburn's made changes defensively. Auburn's made changes offensively. Penn State's made a change defensively as well. Manny Diaz is now their defensive coordinator. They've looked solid through their first 2 games of the season. Auburn looked solid. Actually, Auburn looked okay last week, second half. Then Auburn looked pretty decent in that first game. So you don't have a real measuring stick with Auburn. At least with Penn State, they've played Purdue, that's a team that's respectable. They'll go out on the road every now and again, or they'll play a home game and they'll knock off of one of the power brokers there in the Big Ten. Michigan State, Ohio State. They'll give them a scare. So we've seen Penn State play a Power 5 school already of the opponents that have been played. So I think we know a little bit more about Penn State than we do about Auburn going into this matchup. Penn State's obviously the favorite, as you mentioned, and so I think that this is a situation for Auburn where, yes, you need to not only, I think, look a lot better than you did last week, but if you're Auburn, the message is let's not make the same mistakes that we made last year in Happy Valley in our first real game. No disrespect to Alcorn State and Bama A&M, who they played last year. No disrespect to Mercer and San Jose State from this year, but we can't make the same mistakes we did in our first big Power 5 game that they did last year.
James Franklin, head coach at Penn State. He's a guy, his name's come up with other jobs, yet he stays there at Penn State. What do you make of James Franklin? And we saw him kind of early on in the SEC with Vandy. Then he goes to Penn State. He's been there for a while now. What's the deal with James Franklin?
I believe that he's a really good coach. I think at Penn State it's probably a little bit harder. I was honestly really, really surprised that he didn't take the USC job. But there was a lot of talking. I don't even know if he was, offered the job, essentially. But I would think that when USC came up, when Texas came up a couple of years ago, there's these big Power 5 jobs that have opened. Oklahoma is another one. That I thought would be one that he would jump on.
Yeah.
Not to mention, he's also been flirted with some NFL jobs as well. He's got a background in the NFL as a position coach, but he's known as a good recruiter, as a good motivator. I think that maybe he thinks that he can win there at Penn State. He might just really, really like it there, up there in Happy Valley. And this is a program that obviously loves their football, and they've had a great job they've done a great job under him. Penn State to me kind of feels like they have a ceiling, and it reminds me a little bit of Notre Dame. It's a less glamorous Notre Dame in the sense that they have a ceiling to me that is not near as high as Texas's ceiling, in my opinion, or USC's or Oklahoma's. Coming to the SEC in Oklahoma's case, Penn State to me has a ceiling, and I think that he thinks that he can go through it. But through the first 2 games this year and last year, looked really good with his team. And I think that he uses these kind of games as measuring sticks for his guys, that to see whether they're on par with some of the big people in football. Because what he'll preach to them is, hey, don't take a look at Auburn last year towards the end of the year and just look at the record. He'll just throw on the Alabama-Auburn game like, hey, they played Bama toe-to-toe last year. We're going to the exact same place, and we're going to try to do we're going to get this kind of effort from them as we will this year. I think he's a good coach, number one. I am surprised, though, that he stayed throughout the multiple big-time jobs that have opened up in the last 3 years.
Yep. Let's listen to James Franklin ahead of this big matchup coming up Saturday with the Auburn Tigers.
We'll obviously we'll know a lot more about our team come Saturday night than we do at this stage. On the road, this atmosphere, this type of opponent, the athleticism that they have, we'll have a much better idea of kind of who we are. You need to do enough. You need to do enough on offense and defense to cause your opponent challenges, but not too much that you're not executing at a high enough level in what you do. Because the reality is, as we all know, the less you do, the better chance you have of executing it. So that's always the fine line, right? Of how big is the game plan, making sure that you're getting enough reps in practice to be able to execute those things, and making sure that you're able to execute those things versus all of the possible looks that you may get, whether it's an offensive formation or shift or motion, or whether it's a defensive front, or pressure.
That was James Franklin, Penn State head coach, as they're getting ready to come down and take on the Auburn Tigers. He said, he's going to learn a lot about his team. We'll learn a lot about the Auburn Tigers as well.
Yeah, we certainly will. And this to me is the real test for Auburn as they move forward, because a team against like Missouri, they play the following weekend is another home game, and then LSU the week after that. Of the three opponents before Georgia, you have the Mercer game to start the season and the Georgia game a little bit later on. Of the games that are squeezed right there in the middle, San Jose State, Penn State, Missouri, and LSU, I believe that this is the most impactful game for their season. Not only where it falls in the schedule, but the kind of quality opponent that Penn State is going into the year. And I think it'll tell us a lot more about Auburn as the Tigers go into the Georgia game or the LSU game before they meet the defending national champions.
Yeah, well, so Auburn, Penn State coming up at 2:30 this Saturday. The Jacksonville State Gamecocks on the road. They're heading to Tulsa, Oklahoma to take on Tulsa this Saturday evening, 6 o'clock. It will kick that one off. They're on ESPN Plus. You'll be able to hear it right here on Fox Sports 102.9 with the pregame show beginning at 5. Looking at the schedule top to bottom, this is probably the toughest as we look on paper that JSU has this year, with an FBS team that played in a bowl game last year.
Yep, FBS team not only played in a bowl game last year, but also a team that plays well in close games. They did so this year. They've done so against some quality opponents, both last year and this year. They just find ways to win. They did that last week against Northern Illinois. They were able to come back down late in the ball game, less than a minute to go. They drive down the field. They ended up giving it to their big running back and the big 6'2", 260-pounder, and Robinson, and he's able to push that thing in. This is a team, if you look at, you're obviously not right in the top 25, so where I like to go, where my eyes like to go, is the Football Power Index, which there's still, not a ton of data points as it relates to right now, but just as a comparison standpoint, it's a little different from the overall coaches rankings and the AP poll rankings, because a lot of that's based on what you did a year ago, and the FPI ranks a little bit of that in there. But as a comparison point, Penn State's number 13. That's who Auburn will play this week. They're 22nd in the coaches poll, 13 in the Power Football Index, and so I think it gives you a little bit of a matchup there, a qualifying point on the matchup there. Meanwhile, for Jacksonville State taking on a Tulsa team, and Tulsa 1-1 going into the matchup, and Tulsa as of right now ranked number 93 according to Football Power Index. So in my opinion, with Jacksonville State coming into the FBS this year, this is a measuring stick game for them. There's 131 teams right now that play FBS football. Jacksonville State will be one of a handful that make it more than that going into next year. Well, this is a team right now that ranks 90th, so towards the bottom of the FBS. How does JSU rank with these kind of teams? Now, obviously, these are kind of rudimentary points here, but this is a nice measuring stick game, and I really think that they'll be able to bring a nice fight to Tulsa coming into this week. But this is a really good Tulsa team. Quarterback's thrown 7 touchdowns, 1 interception, a really good running game as well. I really like what they've done so far.
Here is Philip Montgomery. He's the head coach at Tulsa.
Yeah, and he's in his press conference. He's actually answering a question here, and you'll hear the reporter's question about Rich Rodriguez and his history in the FBS.
And he's been around a very long time. What are you seeing so far out of film? And, I mean, he's kind of like trying to revitalize his career at Jacksonville State.
Well, revitalize, I don't know about all that part of it. I know he's one heck of a coach. I mean, everywhere that he's been, he's done a fantastic job. Always admired some of the things that he's been able to do offensively. You know, when he had Pat over there at West Virginia and some of the things that they were able to do. You know, goes to Michigan, does a nice job there. Goes to Arizona, does a nice job there. You know, he's a guy that is very innovative in what they want to do offensively. Obviously, he's got a heavy hand in that. I know Rod Smith is with him, who has been with him for a lot of years, and I think may have been his first quarterback back in the day at one of the earlier stops. They do so many unique things offensively. I mean, it's really triple option, but it's done in such a different way. They give you a lot of eye candy, a lot of things to look at. You got to play really disciplined defense, so it'll be a great test for us, and they're doing it with some extremely good people. I mean, Zion is playing really well right now. They got a couple of backs that they can do multiple things with, and they're talented at the receiver spot, and you look at them up front, they come off the football and they get in your face. So we've got to do a good job of playing sound defensively, getting them in awkward types positions. You can't let them get big chunks on first down. You've got to get them behind the chains and make them do something that they're not quite as comfortable, not quite in rhythm. You got to get them off a pace somehow.
That was Philip Montgomery, head coach there at Tulsa. And should be a great one. I mean, a good test for JSU, and I know Tulsa probably feels the same.
Yeah, this is the best opponent Jacksonville State will play all year. This is the kind of opponent they'll play when they go to the FBS next year. Without a chance to win the conference championship, without a chance to win a national championship, I think this can be your crowning achievement to knock off an FBS team.
Yep. We're going to talk some Jacksonville State volleyball coming up next. Head coach Todd Garvey will join us. We'll get a glimpse into the Gamecock volleyball program. We will do that coming up next as we continue here on WKXX Live.
Hey, it's Chase from WKXX.
Doing really well. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, your ladies off to a hot start, 10-0 to start this 2022 season. We'll get into some specific games, how it's all going, but just kind of give us an overview of this squad you've put out on the court this year and what's got them to the point they are now.
Yeah, so it's kind of a weird mix for us. We do have some key pieces that returned from last year's team, but we also have 9 new players on the team this year. We have 5 freshmen and then 4 transfers that came in and joined us. So it's kind of been a total team effort. Our returners that have come back have definitely done a great job leading and kind of teaching everybody kind of the culture that we've created the past couple years. And the new people couldn't have fit in any better. Our transfers and freshmen have come in working hard and have contributed a lot already. So it's definitely a great bunch, and we're looking forward to kind of seeing what they can do this season.
Coach, you talked about the returning players being able to help set the culture. What are some things of the culture that they've passed along to the 9 new ones, whether it's the young ones, as you mentioned, with the 5 freshmen, or the transfers? What are some of those detailed things look like from a day-to-day perspective inside the culture?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's a family-like culture. Like everyone on the team is very, very close on and off the court. They know that the coaches and the coaching staff cares a lot about them, not just as players, but as people. And I think in turn, they're willing to work hard for us. And I think we take a lot of pride in working extremely hard and want to work our hardest and perform well in every area. So if it's scouting or taking care of our bodies, getting rest, whatever it may be, we want to try to outdo the other team. And I think that they've really bought into doing all those little things that kind of make a big difference as a whole when you add them up.
Just looking at your schedule, of course, you started out at the Indiana University tournament, then the Clemson Invitational, and then you guys hosted the Gamecock Classic. You'll have a big tournament we'll talk about, or an invitational this weekend that we'll talk about in a minute. But as you scheduled out this 2022 season, what were some things you were trying to, maybe some teams that could challenge your squad? What was going through your mind as you scheduled this and just the level of volleyball that you guys have seen this year?
Yeah, so when making up the non-conference schedule, we want to schedule as many tough games as possible. Our goal is always to try to compete for an ASUN championship and feel like we had the pieces this year that could take that step and hopefully try to get it done. But we definitely went out and tried to schedule as many Power 5 schools as we could, and then outside of the Power 5 schools too, we try to schedule some of the non-Power 5 schools that win in their conference on a year-to-year basis. For number one, to help our RPI and strength of schedule, but then mostly just to get us prepared. Like when we step on the court, we want to have to perform at a high level or else lose, and we want to kind of get that mindset to our players that every time we step on the court, we need to perform our best or else we might lose the match. And I think that us scheduling that tough has kind of kept our guard up and definitely pushed us to get better each and every day. For us to open up on the road at Indiana, Big Ten for volleyball is as good as it gets. So for us to open up on the road to Indiana and sweep Indiana on their home court was definitely awesome and momentum builder. And then the following weekend we went into Clemson and beat them on their home court. And it's definitely been awesome. We've got off to a good start, and I still feel like the team has a long way to go, and there's still a lot to get better at, which is a good thing. So we're looking forward to kind of seeing how they can progress from here.
Specifically from a I guess X's and O strategy standpoint, what are some of the things that you are hanging your hat on this year? Maybe some of the things that you saw in preseason practice, and then the way that it's playing out. What are some of the things that this team is doing really well through the first 10 games?
Yeah, I think offensively, our setter, we got a grad transfer setter that came in and replaced our all-conference setter that we lost last season. She's done an awesome job. We always want to try to stay balanced offensively and set everybody, kind of spread the ball around so that way teams can't key on 1 or 2 players to stop. Like they got to try to worry about defending the whole team. I always think when you're balanced offensively like that and the other team doesn't really know how to scout you, it definitely makes it harder. So our offense has been really, really good all season long. Claire Oakes is our setter that came in and kind of filled the void of Lexi Libbs, who was our all-conference setter for the past 3 or 4 years, and done a nice job with that. But I think the thing that's really set this team apart is our defense is taking it to a whole new level. We're playing really, really good defensively. Our front line is doing a good job of blocking, and then our back row consists of our libero, Aaron Carmichael, and DS Brooklyn Shifley, who are both from the Indianapolis area and have done an outstanding job. leading our back row and helping us win games defensively as well this year.
We're talking with Jacksonville State head volleyball coach Todd Garvey. You got the JSU Invitational that begins tomorrow morning. You've got Jackson State, Southern Miss, and Auburn. Some really good competition coming to Pete Matthews Coliseum there. So talk about having these teams come to your home court and trying to, play the best volleyball you can against three good teams.
Yeah, I think each one presents a different challenge. Jackson State last year won 17 games and made it to the volleyball NIVT tournament, which is kind of the top-notch tournament after the NCAA tournament that you have to get invited to. So they played in that, and Friday night we play a Southern Miss team that's 7-2 and have one of the best outside hitters around, and that's going to be a challenge for us. And then Saturday night we finish with Auburn, who is also undefeated on the season. So I think right now there's 8 teams in the country that are undefeated, and us and Auburn are 2 of them. So that should be a good match as well.
For sure, and that's the final match before you go into the into ASUN play. You talked about wanting to win a conference championship and gearing yourself up towards that. For those unfamiliar with ASUN volleyball, what are some of the differences that you see within this conference? I know that you also have familiarity with the OVC, but what are some of the things of this conference that you saw last year and you're expecting again this season?
Well, I think overall, it's one of the best non-Power 5 conferences out there for volleyball. There's so many good teams at the top, and then at the bottom, there's not really any weak teams. I think in the OVC, you had a couple good teams at the top, and then the bottom half was kind of weak usually. ASUN, you're going to get tested every single night you step on the court. And, they definitely have some of the best teams in the country. Florida Gulf Coast made the NCAA tournament last year, actually beat us in the conference championship game to make it, and they ended up beating Texas Tech first round of the NCAA tournament and advancing, and they should be better than they were last year. Kennesaw State, Lipscomb should both be very, very good again. So I think it's definitely one of the best non-Power 5 conferences in the country, which we love. We love to be able to go compete against really great teams and kind of continue to get better throughout the year. But we're going to have our work cut out for us, but I do love this team and like our chances of hopefully going all the way this year.
Well, we're looking forward to keeping up with you and the team as you get into ASUN play. And Coach Todd Garvey, Jacksonville State head volleyball coach. Coach, really appreciate you taking a few minutes with us this afternoon. We'll do it again soon. Hope the weekend goes great, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot for having me on, and we hope people come out and watch this weekend. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Todd Garvey, Jacksonville State head volleyball coach. Hey, go watch some of this weekend. It's going to be really good volleyball there at Pete Matthews Coliseum. Admission is free there this weekend, so you can go watch Auburn. Like you said, they're undefeated. Jacksonville State undefeated. That's the Saturday night matchup. Southern Miss, Jackson State will be there as well. Yeah,
it's going to be a great weekend of volleyball. I know there's obviously a lot of excitement Fridays and Saturdays with football. Bring your phone with you, bring your devices with you, and peep in on the scores. But check out some great volleyball. You mentioned Jackson State won 17 games last year, a really good Southern Miss team. This is the nice precursor right before the ASUN play. And you heard him talk about the ASUN, and he said this is probably one of the best non-Power 5. So there's some great volleyball ahead. Both at Pete Matthews Coliseum and across the league, but a great weekend of volleyball here in Jacksonville. It all begins on Friday morning, actually, as JSU plays Jackson State at 10 a.m. There you go. Great volleyball happening at Pete Matthews Coliseum. Go check it out this weekend. We'll grab a break. Be back with more as Jason Collins. He is going to join us to talk about the race coming up this weekend there at the Alabama International Dragway in Steele. It is going to be a really great weekend, so we'll talk with Jason Collins coming up next. Stick around as we roll on this Thursday afternoon here on WKXX Live.
This weekend, the biggest free party in the mountains.
This is Mayor Brian Bank, and I am inviting you to Fort Payne's Boom Days celebration.
Friday night at 6, it's the local band Dad Company, followed by Midnight Special, a tribute to Creedence Clearwater Revival. Then Saturday at 9, it's vendors, art, crafts, food, tours, and kids' activities. And at 10, a day of free music with the Underwoods, gospel by Sarah Rose, Dusty Smith, Manny Crogston, John Sale, The Locals, and Wildwood. And then, Saturday at 6, Billy Dean.
There's only you and me. Just disagree.
And at 8, Joe Nichols.
Somewhere sunny and 75. You and me
So come early and stay all weekend, September 16th and 17th. Details online at boomdays.com. Brought to you in part by Heil, Bargain Tree, Lenders McLarty Ford, and the City of Fort Payne.
Gregerson's Cash Saver, home of the guaranteed lowest total food bill this week. Assorted cut pork chops, $1.68 a pound. Family pack center cut pork chops, $2.24 a pound. And fresh whole chicken wings, $1.29 a pound. That's half price. Starbucks coffee on sale, 12-ounce bags, regular over $10 a bag, $4.95. Don't miss that deal, folks. It's true what they say. When Cash Saver came to town, grocery prices came down.
This season, the Hoax Bluff football broadcasts are brought to you in part by Scott Young and S&G Machine, your full-service machine shop specializing in custom metal handrails, iron fencing, fire pits, decorative metal wall hangings, and custom metal gates complete with installation and openers. S&G Machine, with over 14,000 patterns ranging from initials to sports teams to wildlife scenes to make your home a unique reflection of you. S&G Machine, LLC, on Main Street, Hoax Bluff, and on Facebook.
We are back here on WKXX Live on this Thursday afternoon. Chase Robinson, Gerhard Mathangani along with you. And you've been hearing the commercials right here on WKXX, getting ready for a big weekend there at the Alabama International Dragway in Steele. And we welcome on Jason Collins right now to talk about it with us. Jason, how are you today?
Doing wonderful, wonderful. The weather is great.
It sure is. I'm loving it. And it's going to be great weather this weekend as well. Talk to us about what's going on there at the Alabama International Dragway.
Right, what we've got is the Radio Outlaw Series. We're actually running. I'm up in the tower right now, so if you hear something, you'll know that this car is running right now. Car's testing for this weekend. And we've already had a car run 356 at 210 plus miles an hour in testing. And I mean, this is going to be an awesome event.
One of the things that has always really intrigued me about the drag racing is the different styles to it. And there's one of the cars as we speak. What can fans expect with these style of vehicles as they make their way down the track in really impressive fashion?
Right. Well, these cars here are drag radial cars. They don't have wheelie bars. Actually, we had this event in April as well, and we actually had one of the cars go airborne. I know the video went pretty much viral on Facebook and all. It actually flew over the guardrail and landed like 200 feet outside the track.
Wow.
I mean, the guy ended up being okay, but like I say, they don't run wheelie bars, and they run on a small tire. It's a lot of them run on what they call a 275 drag radial, which is not much bigger than the tire that would be on your personal vehicle. And, of course, the track has to be pretty much like flypaper, and, I mean, these cars are crazy fast. I mean, 0 to 220 in 3.5 seconds. That's pretty amazing.
That is absolutely amazing. I know there's different classes as well. Walk us through kind of what those are and what's the difference in each of them.
Okay, like in the one class, I mean, you've got all these classes. It's multiple types of power adders. You have blown Hemi combos. You've got Pro Charge combos, nitrous combos, turbo combos. I mean, the way the rules are in these classes is, I mean, it makes it where all the combinations are competitive. So, it doesn't matter if, whichever type of power adder you like best, all of them, pretty much have a chance to win. Exactly.
One of the things that that really interests me as far as the drag racing out there is when you talked about earlier having the surface, and the surface has to be at a certain level. What's the differences between what somebody might see on a track that's not this one here in Alabama at Steele and ones that maybe in other places, or are they all about the same? What's the differences in the surfaces?
Well, it depends. Like certain cars, like if we're running like regular pro modified cars, they require, they don't want a track this sticky because the tires are so big. But these tires are so small that you have to make the track that way. And, of course, they're very finicky. I mean, you got, that's why you don't really know who's going to win the race, because it's pretty much a deal where it's whoever can tune to the conditions the best. And, we've got some of the world's best tuners here this weekend, and some of the, actually the world record holder car is here this weekend.
Wow.
The record was actually done here at the track, went 3:49 in an 8th mile. And, we've just gotten, we do a lot of radial racing, and the track's known pretty much across the United States as being one of the best radial tracks around.
It's going to be a great weekend. Walk us through kind of the schedule of events, how people can get tickets, and what time it all goes down.
You can buy tickets, here at the gate. There's also, if you go on our Facebook page or whatever, there is a place you can go buy them online. But they are available here at the gate. We're going to be here today, Friday, and Saturday. Both Friday and Saturday is a full day event. It's going to be 9 a.m. in the morning till probably midnight. It's an all day affair, and like I say, there's probably 250 cars on the property right now, and it's going to be awesome event. The last one we had was excellent, so I don't expect this one to be any different.
So check them out there at the Alabama International Dragway in Steele. You can buy tickets at the gate all day, tomorrow and Saturday. So go check them out. Enjoy the fastest radial cars there on the planet there at the Alabama International Dragway in Steele. Jason, really appreciate you coming on with us today, and hope the weekend goes great.
All right, man. Like I say, these are the fastest door cars on the planet, period. It don't matter if you're talking big tires or small tires. These things, there's been no cars with even the big slicks on it that's been 340s in a door car. So, they're definitely bad to the bone.
Really cool. Absolutely. Thanks so much, Jason.
All right. Y'all have a great one.
You too.
You too.
Jason Collins there from the Alabama International Dragway, and if you like speed, that's where you need to be.
100%. I got a chance. If you're on social media, both on the Facebook page of the Alabama International Dragway, also the Facebook page of the Radio Outlaws Racing Series, they posted a couple of hours ago the testing that went on in Alabama. So basically, you'll see the testing from last night, and the last night testing was insane. You're seeing 3.8s, and I know it'll be a little bit different tomorrow. He said 3.4s, but it's unbelievable how fast these cars get. And he said that it's fastest door cars, period, no matter the tires and whatnot. So yeah, if you're into racing, if you're interested into speed just in general, this is definitely the place to be. And is to get your appetite wet, so to speak. Head over to us to social media. You'll see the testing from last night.
Yeah, and again, that is all happening there in Steele at the Alabama International Dragway. You can buy tickets there at the gate or, again, their Facebook page. But the radial cars in action there, and love to help them promote it and get the word out. So go check out the fastest radial door slammers on the planet there at the Alabama International Dragway in Steele. We've still got a lot to cover today. We're going to get into some college football coming up next. We'll get into some high school football as well. Brian Mintz will join us of the Etowah County Fellowship of Christian Athletes. We'll get into the NFL game coming up tonight. So we've got a lot to cover here on the show, but we want to remind you, we're brought to you in part by Frank's Roofing. Our studio roof developed a leak. So guess who we called? We called Frank. The estimate was free. The price was fair. They got on it. They got the job done the very next day. The best part, they were professional. They fixed the problem in one visit. They didn't leave a mess. They were great to deal with. So do what we did. Trust Frank's Roofing for your shingle, metal, or flat roof repair or replacement. Call 256-458-8531 for a free estimate. That is 256-458-8531. That is Frank's Roofing. So coming up next, we're going to look at college football's best bets. Some notable lines, what the folks are saying about these games. We'll run through those coming up next. So stick around as we roll on this Thursday afternoon, getting ready for a big weekend of football. Stick around here on Fox Sports 102.9.
The City of Hoke's
WKXX is live for the fastest 2 hours in sports talk radio. Get ready for Chase Robinson.
He has got to be a player they can rely on in big situations.
And Gerhard Mathangani.
Has the trust of his team. Sounds like the makeup of his team is in a really good space, and I believe that's because of the culture he's curated down there.
For WKXX Live, these guys have you covered from preps to pros and everything in between. Now, let's go inside the Fox Sports 102.9 studio with Chase and Gerhard for WKXX Live.
Hour number 2, we welcome you in on this Thursday afternoon. Had a great first hour. Appreciate Jacksonville State volleyball coach Todd Garvey for joining us. Also appreciate Jason Collins and the Alabama International Dragway for joining us in hour number 1. But we got a lot to get to here in this hour as we'll talk college football, high school football. We'll get into some NFL that is coming up tonight. And we do welcome in your phone calls at 256-413-1029. But starting off the hour, Gerhard, with college football's best bets of the weekend.
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting because there's some really interesting storylines. We're getting more games in, so we're starting to find out who these teams are. Of course, at the beginning of the year, it's basically kind of a crapshoot, but as you get in deeper into the season, the lines become more interesting. So we'll start to break some of these down. Number 1, we'll do Penn State. Penn State's a 3-point favorite at Auburn. Over under of that game is 48. So Vegas is predicting somewhere in the neighborhood of a 25-23 or 26-22 type game. I don't know, where do you see that one?
Yeah, that's it's hard to predict this one.
Yeah,
hard to really understand what's going to happen. I think there's so many variables to this one. I think it could be around that. I do. But it's hard to gauge. But yeah, I think I'd probably go over. I think a lot of points could be scored.
Yeah, I think so too. That's where my main thing is. I don't think that the spread, they got it about right, enough to where I probably wouldn't touch it either way. I think it's kind of a last possession game. I won't be surprised if the winner wins by a field goal at the end, or it stays within that 3 number. But the over under is the one that throws me off, because basically, last year's game was a 28-20 game, and Auburn had chances there at the end to tie it up. And if you tie it up, it goes way over that number. I think that they're basing a lot of this on last year.
Yeah.
But you really need a huge special teams play or a huge defensive play, and considering the fact that TJ Finley's thrown the ball to the other team a couple of times.
Yeah.
You can get that in this game. I think that was going to be interesting. Next one is I thought it was really, really interesting. Texas A&M, who just lost to Appalachian State, is a, wait for it, favorite against undefeated Miami, and Miami's the 13th ranked team. I think Vegas is baiting everybody to take Miami, because they're like, okay, well, Miami's destroyed everybody. How is Texas A&M a favorite in this matchup when we just saw them struggle against Appalachian State and they run 38 offensive plays? This one to me is a very, very interesting one because it's a low total. 44 is the total. They're projecting about a Texas A&M win, about 25-19, somewhere in that neighborhood. I think this one is just a wild, wild line considering what we've seen from both teams.
Yeah, I highly disagree with that. I like Miami. I don't like Texas A&M the way they've especially played last week. No sense of urgency at all. Yeah. First of all, I think Miami should be favored, but as far as point totals, maybe. It was low scoring last week for Texas A&M.
Right.
They have no offense, zero offense, so they're not going to score a lot of points. I think it's going to hang on a lot of what Miami does. But yeah, I think point total, that could be around it.
Yeah, this one to me is really interesting. I think of anything on the point total, I would probably go over. But I think this was because it's baiting you to take Miami.
Yeah,
I think you just have to go Texas A&M just because it's one of those things. Do they know something that we don't? And word just came out a little while ago that their top receiver, they being Miami's top receiver, won't play in the game. So it's another offensive weapon that Mario Cristobal and the offense will not have going into College Station. You can make the argument that the Aggies were looking ahead to this particular game, and because they lost, they're now refocused. They're now revitalized. They know, with one loss, you can still get into the playoff. A lot of other things have to break your way. They have to literally run the table and win the SEC championship in order to get there. But in order to even have a shot at getting in there. But this line is just so weird to me. Almost a touchdown. And there's some experts that think this could go over. This could get even, like, Texas will be favored by even more before we get to game time.
Wow.
which I think is crazy. I think it's baiting you to take Miami in this game, which you probably just have to swallow the pill and hide your head and go Texas A&M.
Yeah, that's so interesting. But I think because going into the season, I thought, well, this is going to be a really good game.
Mm-hmm.
And it still could be.
Right.
There's no doubt about it. But, just based on performance.
Yeah, really interesting. The next one on the slate is an SEC matchup between the defending national champion Georgia. Not a surprise that they're a favorite against South Carolina, but going on the road, it's a really hostile environment at South Carolina. They're more than 3 touchdown favorite, 24.5 as it sits right now. What do you think of that one?
I think that's probably spot on.
Yeah.
Just the way Georgia's played it again. It's hard to tell how good Oregon is.
Right.
We know, they beat Samford, 33-0.
Mm-hmm.
But, on the road, though, is what, gets me. I think that could be, close, 24.5. I think they can score a lot of points. I don't, 55. I don't know. Part of me wants to say that it may be more than that.
Yeah, I mean, what the game is projecting, what Vegas is projecting is somewhere in the neighborhood of a 40-15, 39-14 type game. I think Georgia can score more than that. However, I mean, keep in mind, you just said it. They beat Samford 33-0. Did they call the dogs off? No pun intended on either side. Or are they a lot better than Georgia? Or did Samford play a little bit better? Because if you just take the margin of the difference between what they finished against Samford at 33 and what they're favored against South Carolina, let's just round it up to 25. That's a one possession difference.
Yeah.
Do you think that Samford and South Carolina are one touchdown difference, especially now Georgia going on the road instead of being at home? And there's a lot of factors going into it. I don't think you can wholly take the Georgia game against Samford as this kind of be all end all.
Yeah, but you mentioned South Carolina is a tough place to play, though.
Very.
And, I think they're a much better team. So I think they'll get some respect as we move through.
Yeah, 100%. The next one on the slate is Oklahoma and Nebraska. Oklahoma going on the road, facing a Nebraska team with a new head coach now. Keep in mind, Scott Frost, this will be the first game without him in the Cornhuskers headset. Oklahoma is an 11-point favorite. Over under is 66. So they're projecting a lot of points in this game. Projected score 38-27. Do you think Nebraska bounces back with the new head coach and Mickey Joseph?
No.
Yeah.
No at all. It may be around 66, but a lot of those are going to be Oklahoma's points.
Yeah.
I think Oklahoma's good. Nebraska, and maybe Mickey Joseph can get something going there and fire him up in his first game. But I think Oklahoma may be more than an 11-point favorite to me.
Yeah, I think this one kind of goes either way. I think if you're going to touch it at all, I don't know, because there's one of two things that usually happens whenever you lose, whether it's a star player or a coach. The team either galvanizes and wins something that they shouldn't win, or they just completely fall apart. I think this game will fall on the leadership of Mickey Joseph. How good of a leader is he? Can he galvanize this unit to say, hey, we're a new team, we're a new program. You're at home. We've seen Purdue do this at home. They will spring an upset. I think we'll see in the early stages. I think this one, if you're going to try to forecast it, I think you'd have to go with the over under. 66 is a lot of points. I mean, you're projecting the loser of this game to have somewhere in the neighborhood of around 30 something points in the game. So they're projecting a lot of points, which they don't play a ton of defense there in the Big 12. Yeah. So I don't know what Oklahoma will give up, but that's going to be an interesting one. Another interesting game, BYU and Oregon. BYU, the number 12 team in the country, obviously just coming off of a really nice win against Baylor. They are a road dog at Oregon. Oregon, number 25 in the country. Oregon is favored in this matchup by 3 points. That to me is a really interesting thing that Vegas is telling you. BYU coming off that big win.
Yeah.
Do they get too inflated as they go to Eugene?
Yeah, you think that's the reason that Oregon's favored?
I think so. I think it's a bounce back game for Oregon. Now Oregon can focus as they're now back at home, and I think that they think that there's going to be a bit of a hangover for BYU playing in the late game against Baylor last week, and the theatrics, the drama, all that played out in that game.
Yeah,
that's the reason why. So you have the home field advantage in Oregon. Oregon's all fired up. They want to try to erase as much as they can what happened in the Georgia game a couple of weeks ago. I think that's the reason why that one's skewed the way it is. But yeah, over under that one is 58. Another one I found interesting was NC State is at home in a 10-point favorite against Texas Tech. Over under that one's 56. NC State, it's a team that had a lot of high hopes going into this year, and it's a multi-score game there against Texas Tech.
Yeah, and I think they want to live up to expectations. They can do that with a big win over Texas Tech. Yeah, I think it's good they're favored. 56, the over under there. That's probably a good number to be at. I'd probably take. I may go over in that one, depending on what the Wolfpack offense can do.
Yeah, I think I'd be the most comfortable going with the over and then taking NC State in that one. Maybe a late backside cover, backdoor cover there towards the end, being able to cover that 10. Meanwhile, Michigan State and Washington, I think, is the most, outside of the Texas A&M Miami game, this is one of the more interesting games on the board, because Michigan State, who's looked pretty solid this year, comes in as the number 11 team in the country. They're at Washington, and Washington is a 3.5-point favorite against the top 15 team. Now, keep in mind, Washington is at home. Washington is a team that not a lot of people are talking about going into this year. Michigan State, under former Nick Saban assistant Mel Tucker, looking pretty solid so far. But they're an underdog going on the road. What do you make of that?
Surprising. Washington, they may know something we don't about Washington, and they definitely could, find their way in being a ranked team. But the way Michigan State's playing, that's really, really surprising that they got them as the dog.
Yeah, I think of the two lines, Las Vegas is begging you to take. Yeah. They're begging you to take Michigan State. They're like, they're the underdog. You're not only getting a top 15 team, you're getting 3.5 points going into this one. And they're begging you to take Miami based on what you saw last week with Texas A&M going into that matchup. Final one here is USC, who's looked like world beaters, not against great competition, but they look really strong. Only 12 points. I say only 12 based on their ranking against the Fresno State team that comes in on the season. I just saw it earlier. Oh, they're coming 1-1. This game is in LA at the Memorial Coliseum. The Trojans, 12-point favorite over Fresno State, they've been known to pull some upsets. What do you make of that one?
Somebody told me before the season to watch out for Fresno State. That they could beat USC. I'm not buying that. But,
right.
USC 12-point favorite. Yeah, I think Fresno State can compete with them.
Yeah, I think if anything, I think I'd be the most comfortable with Fresno State, but I think we'll know early on. If USC comes out and punches them in the face, this one could be ugly, and we could see USC moving up in the polls. But they're projecting a high-scoring game, over under 74 in that contest.
Yeah, so that's college football's best bets of the weekend, and should be a great weekend. We'll spend more time tomorrow previewing college football, and then the college kickoff show that comes your way Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock right here on Fox Sports 102.9 as we spend 60 minutes previewing the day's action of college football. We'll jump to a break, get to some high school football. Coming up next, stick around as we roll on here on WKXX Live. We continue on this Thursday afternoon. It is WKXX Live, Fox Sports 102.9. Chase and Gerhard with you this afternoon and getting ready for a big weekend of high school football. We will have Hoax Bluff and Westbrook Christian tomorrow night right here on Fox Sports 102.9. Greg Watkins and myself will be along 6:30 for the pregame show, 7 o'clock kickoff there at Jack Osborne Stadium in Rainbow City on campus at Westbrook Christian. And, Gerhard, they've done a lot of renovations there at Westbrook, got the turf down on the field, and, they get the facilities top-notch there at Westbrook.
Yeah, Westbrook's always been a place that that really invests in sports. They do a great job of investing, not just in football, but they do so in baseball, soccer, and basketball, and they have a really well-rounded program. And this new facility, I think, will help out everybody in being able to get everybody going, and especially on the football side. And what a time to be able to have this structure with a team that they were really high about, really excited about, and should be a great matchup.
Yeah, Westbrook 3-0. Number one in the region right now. They're in 3A Region 6, so should be a great matchup there with Hoax Bluff and Westbrook Christian again right here on Fox Sports 102.9 coming up tomorrow night. We'll have high school football scoreboard show following the game, but before the game, you'll hear game night with Jeff Allen and Coach Jeff Milwee. They'll preview all the action, so lots of high school football coverage coming your way tomorrow on a Football Friday. The Alabama Sports Writers Association has released top 10s for all the classifications here in the state of Alabama. We got Northeast Alabama teams sprinkled all in there, and so we're going to run through those now, and we'll just run quickly through each classification and then highlight our Northeast Alabama teams. But in Class 1A is where we'll start. Elba 1, Leroy 2, Linden 3, Brantley 4, Sweetwater 5, Valley Head 6, Pickens County 7, Spring Garden comes in at 8, Meek 9, and Lochapoka 10. But Spring Garden staying in the top 10 there at number 8. And we've talked about Valley Head a couple of times. They're 3-0. They're at number 6.
Yeah, and keep in mind, Coosa Christian, for the first time in school history, last year knocked off a top 10 team in Decatur Heritage. Can they do it in a second week in a row? That's a really big matchup between Valley Head and Coosa Christian.
Yeah, and moving to Class 2A now, the Fife Red Devils. No surprise, they sit at number 1. They got all 20 of the first place votes. They're 3-0. Highland Home 2, Ayrton 3, Pisgah 4, BB Comer 5, Aliceville 6, GW Long 7, Lynette 8, Clark County 9, and JU Blackshear number 10.
Yeah, this is a really interesting poll because you have several teams that have lost a game or two that is in this top 10. The defending champion in Clark County, they're 1-2 on the year. Lynette 2-2 on the year. They sit number 9 and number 8 respectively. But this as of right now has been Fife's year. But keep your eye on Pisgah. The last time Pisgah was really good was about 10 years ago. The last time they were championship contenders was about 20 years ago. And they're undefeated. Luke Pruitt's a good buddy of mine. He's a really good coach. And Pisgah right now are playing really good football there in the top 5.
Looking at Class 3A now, you got Piedmont, number 1. They got 16 of the first place votes. Mars Hill got 2 first place votes. They sit there at number 2. St. James 3. Gordo got a first place vote there at number 4. Op 5. Mobile Christian 6. Winfield 7. Strawn 8. Houston Academy 9. And Thomasville 10. But you got to go with the defending state champs in Piedmont. Even though they have a loss, continuing there to be number 1.
Yeah, their losses to a really good Cherokee County team. I think the pollsters understand that and certainly give them credit. But keep in mind, Mars Hill Bible, this is a team that competed for the 1A state championship not that long ago. I remember calling that game against Lynette, and then obviously played in 2A. Now here they are, the number 2 team in Class 3A, really turning a lot of heads there this season.
Moving into Class 4A now, you've got Montgomery Catholic, number 1. They got 16 first place votes. Handley, number 2. They got 4 first place votes. Andalusia, 3. Northside, 4. How about Aniana? They got a big win over Cherokee County this past Friday night. They're 4-0. They're at number 5. Anniston, 6. Montgomery Academy 7, Orange Beach 8, Jacksonville 9, Priceville 10. Gerhard, you look at it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all 4-0.
Yeah, and not only are they undefeated, they've played really good opponents to start the season, and they have some great matchups coming up this week as well that we'll highlight a little bit later. But yeah, all teams undefeated. You had Anniston with a huge win last week, a come from behind victory over the Jacksonville Golden Eagles. You have Hanley that looks really solid so far this year. Montgomery Catholic has looked great this year. So they're undefeated, but what's more impressive, not just the mark overall, but they've played some tough opponents to get to this 4-0 record, as all teams have started with an unblemished record.
I think 4A is going to be fun to watch all across the Alabama North and the South. Moving to Class 5A, you've got UMS Wright, unanimously number 1, Leeds 2, Ramsey 3, got the Gunnersville Wildcats 4, Moody 5, Pleasant Grove 6, Gulf Shores 7, Viger 8, Eufaula 9, and the Arab Knights number 10.
Yeah, I like seeing Coach Lee Osment and the Arab Knights still up there, obviously, and UMS Wright, as you mentioned, the unanimous number 1 team. But I expect a really tough matchup this week. They got Viger, who's a top team in the top 10. They've already lost the game so far this year. Keep in mind, though, Gulf Shores starting to make some noise there out of South Alabama, and Moody has been sensational for these first few games.
Moving to 6A, Clay Chalkville unanimously number 1. Former Oxford backup quarter Kamari McClellan, the quarterback there at Clay Chalkville. Mountain Brook 2, Saraland 3, Hillcrest Tuscaloosa 4, Theodore 5, Hartsville 6, Gardendale 7, Pinson Valley 8, Muscle Shoals 9, and Benjamin Russell 10.
This is a really, I think, deep classification just in general. Class 6A has always had really good football. To me, 5A and 6A are kind of the heart of Alabama high school football, and it shows right here at the top. Clay Chalkville, yeah, they showed, they're good. And they got a scare last week, though, against Pinson Valley. So I want to see how they perform this week. They got a really huge one against Center Point, so that should be fun. But really, I think 2 through 9, you can shuffle around in any way, shape, or form. That's how deep the 6A class is.
And in 7A, my guy Keith Etheridge has his Auburn Tigers number 1. They're in Class 7A with 18 of the first place votes. Fairhope 2, Opelika 3, Central Phoenix City 4, Hewitt Trussville 5, Hoover 6, Thompson number 7, but they did get a first place vote. Bob Jones 8, Enterprise 9, and Dothan 10.
Yeah, I think that the pollsters are starting to realize how good their opponents were for Thompson right out of the gate, playing one of the top teams in Georgia and Buford, and then playing Lipscomb Academy, run by Trent Dilfer up in the Nashville area in Tennessee. But they've come back home and they've looked really solid so far. So even though they have a couple of losses, there's at least a voter out there that thinks, hey, this team should be up there. But yeah, hats off to our guy, Keith Etheridge. I mean, what an awesome start. I believe I read something earlier. I'll confirm this, that this might be the first time ever that Auburn has been ranked number 1 in the state.
And you can see Auburn and Leah Montgomery. That's the AHSA TV game of the week tonight. So if you want to watch some high school football, you can watch that game across the state of Alabama. We got to jump to a break because Brian Mintz of the Etowah County Fellowship of Christian Athletes is going to hop on with us next. We'll talk to him coming up.
Hello, Eagle fans. I am
We are back here on Fox Sports 102.9 WKXX Live. Chase and Gerhard with you. And we're joined right now by Brian Mitz of the Etowah County Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Brian, appreciate your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to just share a little bit about what's going on in FCA in Etowah County.
Absolutely. What's the week look like for you?
Well, as I said last week, it's been a very busy week. I've been, and I have been involved in some training this week, and thinking about starting some league and club teams with FCA. And so we're going to maybe run some youth leagues and stuff. So I've been in training for that, and I don't know that that's going to happen immediately, but that's something for us to look at going forward, thinking maybe a youth flag football league, a youth basketball league, perhaps, things of that nature. And then, of course, one of the things that I have wanted to look at is the possibility of us having an FCA volleyball team, which would be a club sport, and they would travel and play and wear an FCA uniform and be representative of us, and be able to go and share their values, Christian values, in a tournament and that type of thing. So those are some things that we're looking at, and that's all new for FCA. So that's some training I've been involved in, and early in the mornings I've been going to some huddles. We've had huddles this week, and then I just left speaking with Glencoe's football team now. Two things I would like to mention here going forward. Yeah. Every opportunity is that we will have our golf tournament on October the 10th. That is Columbus Day. And that will be, we will tee off at 9 o'clock at Twin Bridges. And if you're listening and you're a golfer and maybe you have a team, group of guys that you, or gals that you enjoy playing with, getting out on the links and playing, then we would love for you to come play with us that day. Yes, we have a good day of golf, and we able to raise a little money too. And this is really and truly the only fundraiser that we do. And hey, if you own a business, or you personally, if you would like to sponsor a hole, we have hole sponsorships. That's usually a $100 donation, and we have a lot of individuals that do that. And then we have Sunday school classes and businesses and just anybody imaginable. We have an assortment of people that have committed to being hole sponsors, and we get them a sign made and, of course, posted on one of the tee boxes or around one of the greens at the golf course that day.
For sure.
So that, and then the last thing, of course, is 2 days later. Well, I'm putting myself out there. I'm telling you, we're 2 days later on October the 12th. We will have Fields of Faith, and that will be over at Hoax Bluff at Mike Robertson Stadium, and that will be 6 p.m. And what that is this year we will have two, maybe three kids from Hoax Bluff as our primary as the host school. And then we'll have another couple of, maybe three students that will come and share their testimony on that night. And we usually have some music, and we just have a good night of testimony, and it brings the FCA huddles together. We have a lot of youth groups that come in attendance. Last year, for some reason or the other, we got thrown off a little bit and didn't have that until November, and I think that hurt us crowd-wise a little bit, people attending. But a year or two before that, we had at Gadsden City, I think COVID got us 1 year, but we had it at Gadsden City, and we probably had, I'm going to guess, maybe a little bit more than 300 students that attended. So we're looking forward to that. That's always a lot of fun, and it's man, it's so refreshing to hear these kids get up and share their faith amongst their peers, and it's also a time for the different schools to come together and see that, hey, they have FCA there too at this school, and it's similar, and we try to make things as uniform as possible that everyone gets a similar experience. So those are things that we're looking forward to.
Coach Mintz, I want to go back to something that you talked about earlier with the youth football team and probably a volleyball team. And I know you're in the early stages and the early planning process of that, but from a big picture standpoint, how important is that for you to be able to get the message and the values of FCA on that younger level to be able to help those young student athletes before and even through their maturation process through middle school and high school?
Well, I think the thing is that, we see that sports can be ugly, but it's also, I think, one of the greatest ministry tools that exist. And, us being FCA, I think it makes a natural extension for us to be able to use that as a ministry tool, and to think that we can bring value to sport and make it truly a Christian ministry. I think that's an awesome idea. And then the other thing is that, Paul and John especially, and then even, the recorded words of Jesus, there's many athletic references all through the New Testament because it's such an easy comparison or contrast or to draw from of us and our Christian experience. We're all in a race, and that's the example that is given so often: racing, and boxing, and wrestling. So those things make easy comparisons, and as Paul and John well knew. But I just think that we can do that, and we can possibly do that well. And I know we're going to do it well if we do it. And I think that we can bring the priority of sports back to center, and also we can incorporate faith and Christian values, Christian faith in that. So, and everyone around, we're going to look for opportunities not to just minister to the student athletes, and of course we want to involve Christian coaches, but minister to them, and also minister to the parents that are in attendance. I can't tell you how many times we hear of people coming to faith in Christ through their children. And now that's backwards, obviously, but it happens. And, that very well could be the case here. But we have an opportunity to minister in a gym or on a playing field, and you just never know who's going to be in attendance that needs to hear the message that day.
Really cool idea and vision you guys have for the youth leagues, and hopefully that can get going soon, and you can have some FCA teams there. You mentioned the golf tournament one more time, Brian. If folks want to be a part of it, whether playing or have a sign, how can they go about doing that?
Well, the first and easiest step is probably to contact me, or and you can call me. You can find me on Facebook. Send me a message. Fellowship of Christian Athletes, Etowah County. We have a Facebook page there where we post pictures of, I try to post pictures of just about everything I do in a day, if I can remember to take a picture. Sometimes I don't. But anyway, you can look and you can see I've got, graphics posted for that there. But you can call me, 256-490-0831, 256-490-0831, and we would love your involvement.
Good stuff, Brian, as always. Appreciate your time. Thanks for what you do, and we'll talk to you again next week.
All right. Thank you so much, Chase.
Thank you. Brian Metz there with the Etowah County Fellowship of Christian Athletes joining us here on this Thursday afternoon at WKXX Live. We got some a little more football to talk about as Chargers, Chiefs tonight, Thursday night football. We'll talk about that next.
Gregerson's Cash Saver, home